Hey, community, welcome back. And if this is your first time here, I'm Dr. Blaire, a doc in clinical psychology. And on this channel, we discuss psychology, inspiration, social justice, and all topics in between. First things first, hit that subscribe and bell button. I need to see you back next week. And of course, stay tuned because again, we are going to enter the battlefield. All right, so we are going to enter the battlefield once again. And like I mentioned last week, this is going to be a reoccurring series, but this time we're going to see it all month of July. And remember that the battlefield, that the battles that are fought, that we're going to be talking about will either be coming from myself or other community members. And we'll be talking about a mixture of personal and or professional battles that we are fighting and or have fought before. Now, with that being said, remember that the battlefield is the place that we release, reclaim, and reestablish our justice, the justice of our minds, the justice of our bodies, the justice of our spirit, and the justice of our soul. And today, the battlefield that we will be entering today is imposter syndrome. And today I have here with me none other than Lynita Capler, CEO of Covenant Culture Network, CCN, and she has been here before. I'm so happy to have you back, Lynita. Welcome, welcome, welcome once again.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be on this side of the internet, soon to be empire. Let's claim it.
We claim, look, we reclaiming and reestablishing,
Reclaim
right?
empire. So thank you, listeners, for having me back, and thank you, Dr. Blaire.
No, thank you for coming. It's such a joy to have you. And you're here to talk about imposter syndrome, which I know, listen, I know a lot of us can actually relate to what it's like to struggle with imposter syndrome. And we believe that as we talk about these things, we have an opportunity to be freed from and reclaim the justice that we are awarded in God. And so, with that being said, Lynita, I'm going to hand the mic over to you to talk about how you entered the battlefield with imposter syndrome.
Well, I look at imposter syndrome kind of like the wilderness, right? For
Mhm.
me, it was having to get like released from this bondage, taking time to deal with it. And I believe I'm at a part of the process where I can finally see the promised land, but know that I have to up my faith and do some extra internal work to make sure that I cross over, that I don't allow myself to stay intimidated. And it's been a real battle. It's been an exodus and a battle. And so it's been a lot of work, but it's been worth it. And I'm living the fruit and the evidence of it every day.
Can you tell us a little bit more around when was it that you first realized that you were battling with imposter syndrome?
I would have to say it would be in college. I've
Hmm.
been educated in predominantly white institutions my entire life,
Hmm.
but being one of the only Black people on a college campus made me feel inferior, and it made me feel inadequate. I wasn't always confident that I could stand the task, and I even changed my major because of it. I wasn't confident, and so experiencing that and just all the different environments that I've been in, it was I noticed that it was appearing, but I didn't do anything about it initially. I didn't start really working on it until about 2020.
So about the part of I didn't do anything about it. Can you tell us why? What are some of, it might not even just be one reason. What are some of the reasons that contributed to you not doing anything about imposter syndrome resting on this battlefield?
Um, I want to not be too embarrassed and realize during that point in my life, I really just didn't know what it was. I thought I was just another person with low self-esteem and was out here trying to make it, hearing my family member in the back of my head, you got to prove that you're smarter. You got to be better than them, enter whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
so I didn't have the knowledge, even though I was going into a mental health field.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't discussing it even 5 years ago. And
Mhm.
so in about 2020, I had to face myself without getting permission from anyone else. It was really God, and culture was starting to talk about it a little bit more, but it was definitely Holy Spirit led. And he was like, "You never gave Lynita a chance."
Hmm. You, Lynita, never gave you, Lynita, a chance. That says so much. Because really, with that imposter syndrome, it's oftentimes this mirror of ourselves. And when I talk about the battlefield, I never talk about any physical one else on this thing with us. A lot of times it's us that we are fighting, or something that's representing or posing itself as us. And so we have to kind of overcome this other thing that looks like us, that's actually
Right.
attempting to get us to reflect and mimic the very thing that it's doing. We're not gonna get too far into this thing. We're gonna wheel it back. We're gonna ease into that real quick. You just wheel it back, because I felt like a little fire was getting lit under me. But like, when the visualization of that, just off of that statement alone, that you, Lynita, never gave you, Lynita, a chance, means so much. And so when you have greater knowledge as of 2020, I think is what you said. And I always preach about knowledge and understanding. We perish, we suffer due to the lack of knowledge and understanding. But now that you do have it, that was like a layer of freedom itself, that now you got a chance to start working on it. So now here's your release that's happening.
Oof. It was like when I realized that I can like myself,
Mm.
when I realized that I was equipped with the skills that I had, and
Mhm.
God allowed me to be in an opportunity, that who I was with the knowledge that I had was good enough. And that if I wanted to acquire more, if I wanted to be different, I
Mhm.
had the permission to do it. It changed me. Um, but I really believe the change occurred when I realized it was because of the spirit of God that was in me,
Mm.
not because of my personality, not because I have multiple degrees,
Mhm.
not because I worked in these different arenas of education, social services, and criminal justice. It wasn't that I was worthy because I did good works. It's that I was worthy because I knew Christ.
That's so good, because I was worthy because I knew Christ. And one of the things that you said that really stands out to me is when you came into this understanding of who was within you, God was within you. And I can't help but to think about Genesis 1 through 27, where it talks about that we are made in his image. And because we're made in his image, just kind of going back off of that visualization that we just talked about a few seconds ago, we get to debunk that thing, because we know the thing that we actually ought to be mirroring is not that. It's not the one that's trying to get us to mimic it and trying to get us to be like a little Pinocchio, but
Mm.
instead, not puppeting us, but instead that we need to be mirroring the image of God, because that's what he made us in. And so it's kind of like removing this deflection, this deception, and instead tapping into the true light. And so that true light is what then birthed out of you. I could like myself, right?
I
I
can
can like
love
that.
and like myself.
Yes.
And like, I want to go back to that image that you painted for us standing in front of a mirror. As a believer, you get the opportunity to reflect two images,
Right.
your flesh or your spirit. And when I looked at my flesh, if I'm looking in the mirror of my flesh, I
You
feel
better
inadequate.
teach.
I feel stupid. I feel that negative voice that will naturally come from the fallen world will tell me that I am everything but good. But when I look at the spirit of God in me, my original being, who I truly am, what I'm capable of, even what I will be capable of, my potential is safe in the spirit of God.
Mhm.
My potential is damaging in the mirror of my enemy because it makes me see what I don't have instead of what I can have. And so that mirror scene, that's why I created my mirror's testimony when
Mhm.
I first started my podcast.
Right. Yes.
It was like I needed people to see my reflection. I needed people to see Christ, not Lynita, because I wasn't even sure who she was yet. But Christ was an anchor for me.
I love that so much. And here you are walking into that next stage where you're reclaiming. You have already started to reclaim. And I
And
love this. Like, it's just the trajectory of this. Y'all, we don't
mhm,
plan this. We did not sit here and come up with a script. We barely have any questions, specific questions. Lynita, did you get any questions for me this time?
zilch, zero, none. And I'm loving
None.
it. I'm rubbing off on y'all. It's good. I'm here for a spontaneous Dr. Blaire.
Just go with it and you flow in. I believe that when the Holy Spirit is there, gold will always come out. And here it is that you have shown us the process, that how you released simply off of gaining knowledge and an understanding. You're like, it's this thing. You took it an even step further and deeper, and then you moved into, oh, this is what's mine. And then you started reclaiming it. And so, Lynita, you have to tell us, how have you reestablished, or are you still reestablishing who you are while moving and fighting this imposter syndrome?
I'm definitely in this dual process of already have acquired and reestablishing. And I think it's a continuous process because I realize that I'm becoming Lynita in different environments. I'm becoming Lynita at home. I'm becoming Lynita in the workplace. I'm becoming Lynita in my friendships. I'm becoming Lynita in ministry. And I'm not becoming multiple versions of her. I'm becoming my authentic self in every space that I'm in. But in order for me to become that person, I
Mm-hmm.
had to reprioritize and create boundaries, and also determine what I wanted to do first.
Mm.
I wanted to become Lynita whole at home first. So I started establishing boundaries with my parents, boundaries with my siblings and my nieces, even my nieces and nephews, what I can and what I can't do, and who I'm no longer going to be, even though you know me as her. Lynita had to die in order to become.
Mm. Say it again.
Lynita had to die in order to become.
Why did Lynita have to die?
Because the narrative that she was living by was false. It
Which
was not.
Lynita was dying?
This whole fleshy one, this insecure
Mm.
one,
Yeah.
this unstable,
Mm-hmm.
unloved one, like that had to be buried. Like she had to go. I did a real nice eulogy for her and
Mm-hmm.
everything. Okay, it was great. But in order to be born, I really had to say, I don't have to be who my mother raised me to be, because I knew that I had a father in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
And and I just want to talk to the person who doesn't have a relationship with Christ yet, who still deals with identity issues.
Mm-hmm.
Imposter syndrome is simply a lack of identity.
Mm.
You don't, and you can't value something that you are unaware exists. You can't trust something that you are unaware has stability. And so finding your identity and finding how do you want, determining and making conscious decisions on how you want to function allows you to be stable in every place. And I think that's how I reclaimed it. I'm going to be stable and I'm going to be me, not who you want me to be.
And there it is. That is the reestablishment of Lynita. And so, Lynita, do you feel like you have stepped off of this battlefield, or do you feel like you are still on it?
I'm still fighting.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to be honest, the majority of the fight is no longer with other people. It's me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's a rigged fight and it's a fight that I've become comfortable in.
Mm.
And I don't want to say comfortable as in complacency,
Mm-hmm.
comfortable in understanding that I have a strategy to win. Because every day I'm going to identify what I don't like. I'm going to reflect and then create a step to improve. But that internal mental battle and how I am fighting has changed. I used to just fight with therapy, or I used to just fight with prayer.
Talk about it.
I used to just fight with church.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm merging it all together. And I'm realizing that the balance is going to change at some point.
Yes,
Equation might change. The formula is still the same.
it has to.
And So yeah, I'm still fighting, but I know that I'm victorious, and I have a mindset
Mm-hmm.
of a victor instead of a victim now.
Mm-hmm.
So I see an acceleration of this battlefield ending, and I'm also okay if it's a battle that I have to remind the enemy that I won for the rest of my life.
Hmm.
We have to
Mhm.
start doing
Did
some
you, did you
Civil
catch
War
the
reenactments.
language? Did you catch the language? What that you won, that is past tense, y'all.
I
Therefore,
would.
believing that what you are experiencing in the present is already in the past because you are claiming what is in the future. We have to get language is so powerful. And I love this so much, Lynita. And I appreciate not only your transparency, but your vulnerability with sharing this with me and also our community because I believe that we all come against imposter syndrome. And maybe you didn't call it imposter syndrome when you experienced it. Maybe you called it something else. That's okay. We're not going to get caught up in names. But the fact is, many of us experience an attack on our identity, specifically the identity that God has ordained us, that has set aside for us, that He has called forth for us before we were even in our mother's womb, the identity that He molded and shaped for us. And here the enemy is coming and wanting to destroy that, to kill that, and to steal from you, specifically the very thing that God has awarded you. And no wonder we all experience an attack on our identity, because if we don't know who we are, then we can't even get into the next parts. I'm just being honest.
How can you introduce somebody to something that you don't know exists? Like, hi, I'm going to introduce you to my name is,
Question mark.
and I offer, like, it's, I'm really into this questions thing right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, if you are questioning your identity, you probably haven't asked yourself the right questions.
Say
Like,
more about that.
so I'm all about like, how do you reframe the question?
Mm-hmm.
So instead of like, who am I anyway? No, who am I anyway?
Mm.
What do I have to offer? When do I want to offer it? Why am I like this? Like, if I'm questioning that, I need to question my foundation.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask more questions instead of just doubting myself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why do I think I could do that? Why don't I think I can do this? And it allows you to get to the root and allows you to see that you're probably more equipped than you originally thought.
Mm-hmm.
Why did they even consider me? Why would they not consider you?
Mm-hmm.
That reframing
Yes.
of doubting and then affirmation. It's
Mm-hmm.
the same questions, different time, like different posture.
Yeah.
And so changing the posture of your question
Mm-hmm.
and getting answers and not allowing the enemy to tell you who you are, but allowing God to tell you who you are. And so I love
I
this.
I love this so much. So, Lanita, I don't want to keep the people for too long, but I do want to make sure that they get some lasting words of encouragement, wisdom, whatever you feel like is placed on your heart. Maybe it's something that you needed to hear at one point in time, whatever it is. What are some last things around imposter syndrome or words that will push people into the next part of their healing journey and deliverance journey in being freed and actually winning this battle of on this particular battlefield?
Don't judge your future by who you've been, and don't judge your future about who you are now. Just fully accept that you have the opportunity to become everything you want to be. Done.
And ladies and gentlemen, that is how you take the mic and you drop it. I love that. And so, one thing that I want to make sure that I leave all of you with is, if you're wondering who you are, look to God. If you're wondering what you're supposed to look like, look to God. If you're wondering how are you supposed to sound, look to God. If you're wondering how your walk language, how your love language, what your gifts look like, I assure you every single answer lies and rests within Him. So, With that being said, y'all, we are going to exit this battlefield, but I want to be sure that y'all are back here next week for the next battlefield and drop into the comments if you can relate to any of this. And remember that if you too are struggling with imposter syndrome, you can come out of this just like Lynita has already won. She said earlier, I already won. And I'm going to keep reminding myself and everybody else, I already won. So I'm going to say it to you. You already won. Like, comment, subscribe, and share. Share with your community and make sure that you are sharing with someone else that you know is experiencing a battle with imposter syndrome. And remember, before you go, and I'll see you next week, if I'm great and you're great, then we're a great community.